Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're delighted to have you here, and can't wait to get into this session. My name is Kurtaline, and I'm an event manager at ZNotes.
Thank you, Kurtaline. My name is Ver. I'm the founder of ZNotes, and we're delighted to have you join us live today.
This event is brought to you by ZNotes, an education platform built by students for students. ZNotes provides free, high-quality educational resources and peer-to-peer learning to address global educational inequality. Thanks to our passionate and supportive student community, we have reached nearly 6 million learners worldwide and continue to grow our student numbers and impact.
This webinar is part of our wider Uni Guide series designed to support students on their journey towards higher education by providing them with essential information, expert insights, and dedicated advice.
Today's event is presented in partnership with Socrasica, an online platform that helps students applying to top universities by providing expert advice and feedback from subject-dedicated tutors. We're delighted to have them involved.
So Socrasica is represented by Andrew, who's the co-founder and is a former LSE teacher. He'll be talking a bit more in detail about how do you write a perfect personal statement.
Before we dive in, I'd like to remind everyone that there's a dedicated Q&A session at the end, so please share your questions in chat at any time, as we'll be answering this in the final third of the session. Now, I'd like to hand over to Socrasica to introduce your speakers for today.
Hello, hi. Can I get my slides up then on screen?
Yes.
Amazing. Well, hello, I'm Andrew from Socrasica. I'll just give you a little bit of background before we jump into things. So my educational journey has been quite interesting in that I actually dropped out of school when I was 16 years old. So I remember distinctly sitting in class and wanting to put my hand up and ask, what's going on? I don't understand, but being too afraid of looking stupid. And so I actually left school when I was 16 and decided to self-study my A-levels just using YouTube videos. And lo and behold, I ended up winning the Harvard Prize for highest grades in the year. I averaged 98.2% and received all 5 offers at undergrad, including offers from Cambridge and LSE. Then worked as a teacher at the London School of Economics. And I now have 10 years in university admissions as the co-founder of Socrasica. So I'll just explain a little bit about what we do. We help students write the perfect personal statements to get into their dream universities. We've now carried out 40,000 personal statement reviews, and we've helped students get offers from Oxford, Cambridge, Durham, LSE, Warwick, etc. But I wanted to zoom in just one particular success story. It's very close to my heart. So this is actually our first ever student. His name's Rakabal, and he came to me with just one offer, I believe, from Westminster University. And he desperately wanted to get into a more prestigious, a higher ranking institution. And so we took him on, and his grades didn't change. The subjects he was applying to didn't change. All we did is we rewrote his personal statement from scratch. And when he reapplied the next year, he went from getting only one offer from the University of Westminster, ranked 741st in the world, all the way up to getting into UCL, ranked number 9 in the world. And so that's just to outline the power that writing a really strong, compelling personal statement can give to your application. So let's just jump into the outline for today. We'll quickly just cover the logistics, application timeline, etc. Then we'll get into best practices, so how to write the perfect personal statement. Then we'll cover the common mistakes, so the things that prevent people from writing the perfect personal statement. And we'll wrap up with a Q&A session at the end where you can ask me any of your personal statement questions. So very quickly on the logistics side, this webinar is specifically for students applying to UK universities, and it's for students applying during the 2024-2025 application cycle. So what that means is that you are writing your application between now and January 29th of 2025, and you're looking to start university next September, October. And that's very important because if you're applying later on, like if you're applying next year to start in 2 years, there are some changes coming to the personal statement that you need to be aware of. So just to reiterate, this presentation is very precisely for this application window. Students applying now up until the January 29th deadline to start university next September, October. Good. So now that I think we've got the housekeeping out of the way, we can get into what makes the perfect personal statement. So just to zoom out a little bit and understand what a perfect personal statement is, it's basically a triangulate merger between three different things. It's like an autobiography mixed with a love letter, mixed with an essay. So you want to show love for your subject. That's the love letter bit. You also need to bring in biographical components, talk about yourself in a largely positive way, but not too positive as to be arrogant. And then finally, you also need academic details, and that's where the essay writing component comes in. So it's actually quite a difficult thing to do. So, you know, writing a love letter, writing an essay, writing a biography separately, they're all quite challenging, but doing all three of those things in one 4,000 character document, that's really tough. So that's why we put together today's presentation for you. So we're going to start with the structure. So here are three potential ways that you could structure your personal statement. So they all begin with an introduction. That seems fairly obvious. Then structure A has 3 topic paragraphs, then a conclusion. B has only 2 topic paragraphs, then extracurriculars and conclusion. And then C has introduction, 3 topic paragraphs, then extracurriculars and conclusion squeezed in at the end. Just quickly, your topic paragraphs. Those are, each of these topic paragraphs will be a paragraph dedicated to a subtopic within your subject. So if you're applying to, for example, economics, the first topic paragraph might be about behavioral economics, the second might be about macroeconomics. If you're applying to biology, the first one might be about genetics, the second one might be about molecular biology, etc. So what I'd like you to guys to do is have a look at these 3 structures and determine which one you think is the optimal ideal structure. And so you can vote in the chat. You can type in A, B, or C. And then after you've voted, I'll let you guys know which personal statement structure is the best.
So we've gotten an A so far.
Okay.
Not seeing anything else, but an A is a strong choice.
Cool. Maybe give it just a few more seconds, then we'll get into the correct answer. So sadly, A is not the right answer. The correct answer is option C. And I'll just talk you through why. So option C, you start with the introduction, and then you have 3 topic paragraphs, and finally extracurriculars and conclusion at the end. This is the structure that's recommended by UCL, by Oxford. And the reason it works so well is because these universities, they're primarily interested in academic students because you're applying for an academic degree. So they recommend 80% of your personal statement is academic. That means 4 out of your 5 paragraphs must be academic. So introduction and those 3 topic paragraphs are all academic. And then the end, that's where you squeeze in your extracurriculars just to show that you're well-rounded and you have other things going on in your life and you're not going to just be a boring nerd at university studying in the library. You're going to contribute to the wider social life that universities are so famous for. The problem with some of the other 2 are in structure B, although it's very similar to C, there are only 2 topic paragraphs. And so you only get to show interest in 2 topics within your subject. But at university, you're going to study maybe 10, 20 different modules. And so you want to show a diversity of interests in your subject, not just that you're interested in one very specific aspect of your degree, because you'll be studying so broadly at undergraduate level. And then A is incorrect because your extracurriculars are situated halfway through your personal statement, and it actually replaces one of the topic paragraphs. So you're decreasing the amount of academic content and you're bringing up the extracurricular content, which is much less relevant, right? So a university like LSE or UCL, you know, they don't care if you're a great saxophone player. They're interested in, are you good at history or economics or whatever subject you're applying for? So just to give you an example of what this structure might actually look like when you come to write it up, let's say you're writing an economics personal statement. You might start off with a topic that introduced you to economics and got you excited about studying econ at university. Then you might have 3 topic paragraphs. So one could be behavioral economics, the second could be macroeconomics, the third could be statistics. So these are all relevant topics to economics. And then finally you have your extracurriculars and conclusions. So there you might talk about how you're a table tennis player and you love golf and you speak another 3 languages or whatever it is. And then you wrap up with a concluding line. If instead it was physics, then maybe, again, you start off with the topic that got you interested in physics. Perhaps it was how your Bluetooth headphones work or something like that. Then you'd have 3 topic paragraphs, so maybe quantum physics, the second fluid dynamics, the third computational physics. And then you wrap up again with extracurriculars and conclusion. Where it gets a little trickier is if you're applying to a mixed degree. So let's say you're applying to computer science and philosophy, right? So here you want to mix between those 2 subjects. You might want to start with a topic that combines computer science and philosophy. So this could be something like AI and ethics, and you could talk about how that got you interested in applying for this combined degree. Then you could talk about first topic paragraph could be computer science, maybe an app that you built. Second could be philosophy, so maybe free will or something along those lines. And then the third could again be a topic that merges computer science and philosophy together. And then again, extracurricular conclusion. One last example for economics and history. So again, you could start with a topic that blends the 2 together. So perhaps the Great Financial Crisis or the Great Depression, even more ancient. And then you could get into one topic on behavioral economics, one on World War II, and then one on that merges the 2, like the history of money, something like that. So that's what the ideal personal statement structure looks like. Cool. So now we can dive into each component more specifically. So we'll start with the introduction. So here are 3 introductions. 2 of these introductions are good. 2 of these introductions are bad, and 1 of them is good. And so it's up to you guys to work out which is the good one and which are the bad ones. Okay, so I'm going to read through all of them, and then I'd like you to just comment in the chat with which introduction paragraph you think is the good introductory paragraph, the one that would increase your chances of getting in. So paragraph A, captivated by the all-encompassing importance of the law in society, I am amazed at the way crime is moderated, precedents are set, and how they construct the nature of the world around us. My enthusiasm for looking at society in a critical way sparked my interest in law. For me, law is the significant battle between upholding the morality of humanity while maintaining the stability of society within a set of rules, all with the aspiration of preserving a system that seeks to promote fair and equal justice for all. So that's option A. Option B, economics is the study of how to allocate scarce resources amongst infinite wants. There are multiple facets to economics, such as how firms, households, and consumers interact, how governments choose interest rates and macroeconomic targets, and how countries engage in trade wars together. I feel deeply passionate about how economics can teach us about how society works and how to improve global prosperity. And then finally, we have this student's applying for management. Interning at the European Bank for Reconstruction, the EBR, I watched their 10-person team manage a 3,000+ employee company. Each section of the bank was divided into departments. Each department appointed a manager. Goals were set, deadlines decided, tasks delegated, and almost as if by magic, all 3,000+ employees were able to cooperatively move the company forward. To better understand how companies like EBR are run, I read Amazon's company biography, The Everything Store. I learned how CEO Jeff Bezos empowers his employees to think big and speak up if they disagree. Bezos's management practices have scaled Amazon into the world's biggest retail site and shown me the importance of management in the real world. So we'll put maybe 30 seconds for people to reflect, and you can respond in the chat with which of these you think is the good paragraph, the good introduction paragraph, the one that increases your chances of getting into a top university.
I personally think it's B, because it showed knowledge, and it also linked up a little bit of passion. I feel like C was a little too heavy on the ECs. So yeah, a lot of people were getting a lot of A's, one
Okay.
B,
Interesting.
and yeah, that's it about it. That's about it.
Okay, cool. So you got some A's and B's. So sadly, everybody's wrong. So the correct answer is C. This is the only paragraph that university admissions tutors said would increase your chance of getting in. So we'll start with the bad ones. So option A, this sounds great. Like it reads really well to an uninformed audience. But imagine you're a law professor, right? Almost nothing has actually been said here. So captivated by the all-encompassing importance of law in society, these are very vague buzzword type statements, but no actual concrete specifics of what interests them in law have been given. My enthusiasm for looking at society in a critical way sparked my interest in law, but like what in particular? Like what was it about looking at society, right? Like were you just looking out of your window? Like what was it actually about your observations of society? And then it just continues like this. Law is the significant battle between upholding the morality of humanity, blah, blah, blah. Again, just no concrete details. There's no article you've read. There's no book you've read. There's no specific experience you've had that gets you excited about law. It would be very easy to write something like this for any subject, right? Captivated by the all-encompassing importance of physics in the world. You know, so there's nothing really that proves to me you're truly passionate about this subject. B, similar problem. It's very high level. Lots of topics are mentioned, like firms, households, consumers interacting, the government, but no specific concrete details, right? And that would be fine if you're, you know, a GCSE student, but you're about to apply to a 3-year degree. It's expected that you know some specifics about your subject, and you've had some specific experiences, you've done some actual credible research. The other big problem with B is it starts with a definition of economics. Now, that might work for you and me, but you're sending this to an economics professor or lecturer. So imagine defining economics to the person who actually wrote the textbook definition, right? It's kind of insane when you think about it like that. But this is what a lot of personal statement introductions look like. This is the admissions tutor's comment on paragraph A. She said, "This is an empty opening statement with no examples cited to back it up. The weak attempt to define law wastes space and provides no useful details about the applicant." So it's a scathing criticism of this paragraph. And the key things here, though, are it's empty, too many buzzwords, too vague, no examples cited. There's not a single example here or here. There's no real depth or anything concrete. Whereas if we go to option C, here, number one, the student has cited a specific experience they've had working in a bank where they've seen management. So immediately we've got specificity. We've got an actual concrete example. Not just that, though, they go further by reading a book about their topic. So they show that they've actually done some independent research. These two don't do that. There's no show of being curious enough to look into their subject, right? And then what's nice is at the end, they tie it all back to their motivation to study at university. So really what you're looking for in the ideal introduction paragraph is really specific examples. If you haven't worked at a bank or you haven't worked in a physics lab, as very few students have, you can just find these examples online. Literally just type in physics news, right? And you'll find a bunch of specific stories about physics that you can use to kick off your personal statement. You know, so if you have your own believable story, that's amazing. So if your dad's a physicist and you got to work in his lab, amazing. But if you didn't, choose a specific example. You can have a look online. And then you want to link that to actual research you've done. So let's suppose you find a really interesting article on how Bluetooth headphones works, right? That's great, but now you need to build on that. So you need to talk about how this took you down a rabbit hole and you found a really interesting lecture on waveforms or something like that, or how you found an interesting academic paper on different frequencies and how they transmit, how they propagate through the air. That's the sort of thing that we're looking for. We want to see that intellectual curiosity, really specific technical details, because again, you're applying for an academic degree. So you're not having a conversation with your mum here. You're trying to show off that I know my subject, not to expert level, but you've done some real depth. And then finally, you need some kind of sentence that explains your motivation. Things to critically avoid. Number one are quotes. So very often students will start with a quote from, Nelson Mandela or similar to that. The issue with this is, firstly, it's cliche, so a lot of students are doing this. But secondly, it's not your own language. It's not your own quote, is it? Right? So you're referencing somebody else when the personal statement should really be all about you. Sometimes you see it working, but it's quite rare. Second thing is to avoid definitions or descriptions of your subject. Again, you're applying to experts in your subject domain. So you don't need to describe what physics is. You don't need to describe, what philosophy is. They already know that. They're interested in why are you interested in philosophy. And then try and stay away from this vague, generic waffle. So if you don't have anything concrete, clear to say, and you're just listing things or just empty buzzword type statements, this might work if you're submitting your application again to a naive audience who doesn't know anything about the law. But when you're sending it off to a law professor, they know what's BS and what's real concrete research. Okay, so that's what makes a good introductory paragraph. Okay. Next, we'll get into the topic paragraphs. So again, I'm going to read out just one example, 3 examples rather, of a topic paragraph, but only one of them is good. So 2 of them decrease the student's chance of getting in, 1 of them increased it. Okay, so I'm going to read these out, and then I'd like you guys to comment with which one you think is the best, which one would increase your chance of getting in. So option A. While shadowing in GI surgery, I observed necrotic pancreatitis patient in severe septic shock who required a pancreatectomy. Communication skills were crucial when conversing with relatives. The doctor had to pitch an explanation of the treatment suitably with regard to the 50% survival prognosis and the implication of diabetes. During the operation, a pseudocyst ruptured, excreting 4,000 ml of pus. Effective cooperation was paramount as the surgeon delegated roles to ensure minimal invasive damage was caused. Encountering both clinical and social challenges of the treatment prompted me to research alternatives, including autologous pancreatic islet cell transplantation. Although APICT data, both 69% of patients gain insulin independence, NICE predominantly recommends the enforcement of life-changing programs. From this, I realized the crucial role of primary care services in promoting healthy lifestyles to prevent the onset of disease. That's option A. B, in economics class, I was introduced to behavioral economics. We learned how neoclassical economics makes assumptions about how humans make decisions that are not always true. For example, in A-level economics, I have learned about how not every consumer is perfectly rational. We have bounded rationality, which means that we have some biases that make us irrational as well as rational. These include biases like the availability heuristic and confirmation bias. A particularly interesting bias is the anchoring effect. We rely too heavily on the first piece of information when presented with different options, which forces us to act irrationally. This is just one of the many aspects of economics that I find fascinating. And then finally, C. I enjoyed reading The Theory of Everything by Stephen Hawking and watching lectures from the Royal Academy of Physics. I also listened to Oxford University's physics podcast and attended a talk by Lawrence Krauss and entered the Physics Olympiad. Passionate about physics, I found myself compelled to read every edition for the last 3 years from The New Scientist, as well as The World According to Physics by Jim Al-Khalili, 7 brief lessons on physics and reality is not what it seems, The Journey to Quantum Gravity by Carlo Rovelli. Reading these books gave me an insight into how complex and multifaceted physics really is, from quantum physics to general relativity to string theory. All of these resources compounded my passion for physics and challenged me to think differently about the nature of the physical world. So you got C, B, A. A is the medicine one, B is the economics one, C is the physics one. Which of these do you think is the best? Which of these was the one that increased the student's likelihood of getting an offer? So answers.
Me personally, I'm stuck between A and C.
Okay.
They both seem like really strong responses, but I think I'm gonna lean towards C.
All right. Okay. Interesting. Any other thoughts from the audience? We've got a B.
We have a B.
Okay.
An A.
Okay.
And that's about it.
All right. Cool. So You're all wrong except Arnav. So Arnav, you're correct. This is the one that increases your likelihood of getting into university. The reason being is it's super specific. Like the technical vocabulary, I'm not a doctor, right? I barely understand this, but you're sending it to medical admission staff who do, and it's super impressive for them to see a student who really knows how to use this technical vocabulary, who can prove that they really understand their subject. I wouldn't be able to write this, right? because I don't have that subject expertise. And so this is how you prove to universities that you're serious about your subject. However, I could very easily write this, right? All this student has done is listed resources. So I could very easily go online and I could type in physics books, physics lectures. And then I could say, yeah, I've read this, I've watched this, blah, 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 blah. But have you actually? Where's your reflection? Where's what you learned from those resources? Where's proof of some of the technical details, you know? So that's all missing here. And that's what makes this such a weak topic paragraph. It's just a list of things, but with no depth, no substance. And a similar problem with option B. The student has done a good job of describing things they've learned at A-level, but you're not applying for A-level economics. You're applying for undergraduate economics. So we need some evidence that you've gone beyond the curriculum. You know, this could be okay if it started with, I was introduced to behavioral economics studying my A-levels, but then from here, I read this academic paper. I watched this particular lecture. And these are the things that I learned from those resources. So again, A is the correct answer here because you get all of those juicy specific details. There's really in-depth research and there's reflection. So just to give you a concrete example of that, if you look at this the last sentence here, the student says, from this, I realized the crucial role of primary care services and promoting healthy lifestyles to prevent the onset. So it's not just that they've done these things and they know these technical terminologies. They also go into specifically what they learned, and it shows that the student isn't just reading things or getting work experience. Also reflecting, it's changing the way they think, and they're developing as a doctor or whatever subject they are studying. Again, these others, there's no reflection at all, right? So this is just a list of resources. There's no, after reading this, it changed my mind on this particular aspect of quantum gravity or the arrow of time or anything like that. It's just a boring list that anybody could put together, right? You could go into ChatGPT right now, list me 10 popular physics resources and write a paragraph about it. Done, right? The last thing that we want to see in topic paragraphs is a link back to studying at university. So this, I think, is actually missing from all three of them. Ideally, what you'd want at the end of your topic paragraph is something along the lines of, and I look forward to exploring this topic further at university. So let's take this behavioral economics one. There are lots of problems with it, but one easy way to improve it would be to change this to, so this last sentence, this is just one of the many aspects of economics that I find fascinating. And I look forward to exploring the maths behind irrational biases at university. So here you're linking it back to why you want to study at university. It's not just a random paragraph. It's like, this is what I'm interested in, and I'm hoping to do more of that at university. That's why I'm motivated to study this degree. Okay. So and then we have the things to avoid. So just describing or just listing topics is not good enough. We need you to go into more depth. We need you to critically reflect. We need you to pull out technical details that you found interesting. And another thing to avoid is just mentioning your A-levels. So it's fine if they're in there, but if all you do is talk about your A-levels, I mean, we already know what A-levels you're applying with because we can see it in UCAS. What we need is perhaps how your A-levels link to further research, lectures, books, online courses. There are so many things you can do now, essay competitions. The list is really endless. So if all you've put together is a reiteration of your A-levels, I mean, that's quite weak to see from an applicant, okay? It's, to me, reading a personal statement like that, it's like, okay, so you've spent over a year studying this subject, and not once have you bothered to watch an online lecture on it. Not once have you bothered to open up an article or book about your subject. you've just absorbed the A-level curriculum. Well, you know, that's not good enough. If you're planning to spend 3 years studying the subject, you're clearly not interested in it enough. Okay. Good. So we'll now continue to the last section where we're almost finished, which is extracurriculars and conclusion. So again, 3 paragraphs. I'm going to read each one, and then you choose which one would increase your chances of getting in. Let's see if we can get this one right. All right. So option A, outside of my studies, I love reading books, going on walks, and challenging my worldview with traveling. I've also completed my DAV Gold certification, grade 5 saxophone, and level 1 LTA tennis coaching. I look forward to studying at your university. Sorry, so that was option A. Option B, I went to the Gambia on a World Challenge expedition for the 12 months, planning and fundraising. I was the group secretary. This helped me, I think is missing there, become a more succinct record keeper. I also played hockey for the Oxfordshire under-17 teams. County and school hockey has been fun, and my contribution resulted in an Oxfordshire County Award, which made my time and effort worthwhile. I also have great fun playing other sports socially. I've enjoyed playing in a wind band and a school orchestra, and I'm house head of music. A career in medicine offers a wide variety of opportunities to specialize. I feel that I have the right qualities to become a good doctor, and I very much look forward to starting the course. And finally, option C. Outside academia, I play table tennis and have represented England in the 2018 World Championships in Malta. I've also been ranked #1 in the UK and won winner of London Youth Games 2016 and was named winner of National Team Championships twice. Training now for 10 years, 6 times a week, 3 hours a day, has taught me perseverance, discipline, and how to balance my studies alongside outside commitments. I have also completed the Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award. I had to learn how to cook, which resulted in a year-long part-time role at a Michelin-star restaurant. I volunteered as a table tennis coach, managing 15 students simultaneously, and I was responsible for planning a 2-week trek through Europe's toughest long-distance trail, Corsica's GR20. The process taught me leadership, time management, resilience. I'm excited to combine my scientific and management skills in the field of biomedicine at university. So you've got 3 extracurricular and conclusion paragraphs there. Which do you guys think is the best?
After getting it wrong twice, I've put on a lot of thought into this one. Yeah. So I'm going to pick C again. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint me this time.
All right. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Any other responses from the audience?
We have a C and a B, technically.
Cool. Another C. Good. Well, this time you are all correct. And congratulations to Arnav. That's 2 in a row. So yes, C is the correct answer. So this is what we're looking for in an extracurricular and conclusion paragraph. The main point of this is to sound busy and show off a little bit. All right. So you've already done the academic aspect of your personal statement. That's the really important stuff. Now you just want to show the university admissions team that you're a monster. Not only are you academically gifted, but you're also doing all of this other stuff. You can really manage that intense university workload. You can balance the social with the academic. So what C does so well is you read this and you think, how on earth have they also got 4 A stars at A-level? Like that's incredible that they're balancing all of this on top of everything else. So you read through it and it's ranked #1, training for 10 years, 6 times a week, 3 hours a day. They're also working at a Michelin-starred restaurant. It's like, wow, this is a really busy student able to manage time very, very effectively. Lots of specific details were provided, right? So it wasn't just, I play table tennis. It was like, I play table tennis and I've won this competition. This is how often I train. So again, all of those specific details make this feel much more real, much more interesting, and much more impressive. And then we've got reflections. So B and C do this, to be fair. So you can see that B talks about how their secretary experience helped them become a more succinct record keeper. C, they talk about how Training so much has taught them perseverance, discipline, how to balance. That's what we mean by reflections in the context of the extracurricular paragraphs. So all of the things that you've learned from your extracurriculars, they mention specific skills, and then they end strong. So the ending here is really great. I'm excited to combine my scientific and management skills in the field of biomedicine at university. The others, not so much. So I feel that I have the right qualities to become a doctor, and I very much look forward to starting the course. You don't get that excitement. There's no passion there. So you know, that's what makes C a really standout extracurriculars. B does a good job. The one issue here is this last bit. The real issue here is this last bit where they say, I very much look forward to starting the course. Now, that's quite an arrogant thing to say if you don't have an offer yet, okay? A makes the same mistake. I look forward to studying at your university. Well, hang on, you can't look forward to something that might not necessarily, that is not promised yet, right? So you want to stay away from anything presumptuous that might come across as arrogant. And instead you want to wrap up with something that's a bit more hopeful and optimistic, just expounding once again your enthusiasm for the subject. In the topic paragraphs, I had a big go at listing. I said you shouldn't list. But in the extracurriculars section, it's actually okay to just list things out. It's not such a big issue. And that's because the point here isn't to go into lots of crazy technical detail. It's really just to show you're busy. So listing a few, especially if you're tight on word count, it's okay to just list out your extracurriculars and a bunch of things you've done. But you do want to avoid ending weakly. You really want to you know, reconsolidate, reconfirm, recommunicate that passion in your very last sentence, because that is the last thing the admissions tutor is going to read before they make their final decision. Okay, wonderful. So that is the anatomy of the perfect personal statement. I think things are lagging just a little bit.
I think we are having some technical difficulties. Please give us a minute.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's a little bit laggy, but if you can hear me, then I'll continue. So that is the anatomy of the perfect personal statement: introduction, 3 topic paragraphs, and then your extracurriculars and conclusion. And so now we're just going to quickly run through the top 5 big mistakes that students commit. So this is mistake number 1. So I'll give you guys, I'll read this out to you, and then I want you to comment in the chat with what you think the mistake is here. Geography transcends multiple disciplinary boundaries, thereby tackling the complexity of humanity within its toolkit. Stiglitz's study of globalization in his Globalization and its Discontents interrogates the extent to which globalization is indeed a force, for better or for worse. I've utilized numerous research techniques to ascertain key findings of my study thus far, and I look forward to extending my research at degree level. Any ideas what mistake the student is making here?
Is it defining or lecturing on geography far too much?
That's definitely an aspect of it, for sure. The key thing
Your
I wanted to
audio is ringing as
point
well.
out, you're completely correct, though. That is a detail in terms of a book they've read, but no real details. Apologies, guys. I'm not sure.
Andrew,
Maybe if I take video off, does that help?
It does. Do you want to go and just try refresh your connection, and we can continue? Rejoin the live stream.
Hello. Am I audible? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So the big
You're lagging out again.
problem here is the overuse of overly fanciful language.
That's right. Let me get Andrew re-logged in to the live stream. In the meantime, we can just focus on the issues that were clarified in this mistake, which is mainly the overuse of fancy words. And it's really easy to tell when a personal statement has just gone in and highlighted a bunch of words and said these are synonyms and better words to say the same thing. But it's not effectively used, and it's just trying too hard, really. Give us a second while we try to bring Andrew back on stage. Let's see how it works now. Hey, Andrew, can you hear us better now? Seems to
Hello?
be yeah.
You guys can hear me?
We can hear you, but do you want to rejoin the stream and maybe that'll fix the lag issue as well?
Yeah, sorry guys. I think you're all breaking up for me, so I can't quite. I'm going to try to rejoin. Just give me a sec.
So while we wait for Andrew, are there any other questions that are coming up? So Hazm was asked about writing about cybersecurity, what are the different modules in the topic and paragraphs. So that's a great question. We're going to bring that up when Andrew is back on and at the Q&A session. But as you guys are discussing, please feel free to send your questions in so that when we get to the Q&A session, we can go in more detail together.
Hello.
Andrew, you're back now. Yes, it looks good.
Okay, brilliant. Let me just get my slides back up.
Yep.
So, okay, great. So thank you for covering for me there, Zuba. And yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself. So try to avoid the almost like comically fanciful language that just makes you sound a bit ridiculous. Nobody says thus anymore. There might be very niche cases where it makes sense, but you don't need thus, therefore works just fine. Show is better than manifest in most cases. Try works just fine. You don't need to say endeavor. So that's mistake one. Then mistake two, just because we're a little short on time, I'll just break this one down for you. So quickly, just to read it out, given Donald Trump's election in 2016, it is indeed the case that the old way of political thinking must be revamped. A new school of politics must be born, which values the intrinsic essence of what it means to be human. So this falls into the trap of the fake expert. So this student writing this is probably 17, 18 years old, right? But they are claiming that the old way of political thinking must be revamped. A new school of politics must be born. This is these are quite bold claims to come from someone who hasn't even studied a degree in politics. They've perhaps just completed half an A-level. So there's no need to come across as an expert in your field. It's much more important to come across as curious about your subject than that you know everything about it. And so if, for example, you have run into a really complex academic paper or topic within your discipline, you don't have to pretend you've fully understood it. You can actually openly admit, I struggle with this topic, but I found it really interesting and I'd love to learn it in more depth at university. You don't need to come up with your own political theory or anything like that. Okay. Mistake three. This is a very obvious one. I'll just read it out for you. So, ever since I can remember, I've wanted to be an architect. That's all you really need to read here to know what the mistake is, and it's falling into the classical cliches. So these are exact phrases and how often they pop up, right? So from a young age, I've always been interested. That exact phrase pops up 309 times, right? Nursing medicine is very challenging. It's a very challenging and demanding career. 500 times that exact phrase. And so it's really problematic if you're starting your personal statement off with these phrases. It's not like the phrases themselves are actually that bad. The issue is that everybody is using these phrases. And so when an admissions tutor opens yours and they say, oh God, another from an early age, I've always been interested, it's an immediate red flag, right? It puts them in a bad mood. And it lacks originality. So, you know, part of the personal statement is you're applying out of thousands of applicants, and you need to stand out in some credible way. Okay, so try and stay away from any cliches. And this is again one of the issues with trying to copy or emulate other personal statements, is you could unwittingly be simply emulating, copying a cliche opening. So then we've got grammatical mistakes. So give these a quick read on your own. There are, well, an undisclosed number of grammatical mistakes. I want to see if you guys can get all of them, because nearly 90% of personal statements we read still contain grammar errors or spelling errors. And it's just embarrassing. If you're applying to study at a prestigious academic institution, you can't be slipping up like this. It's only 4,000 characters, your personal statement. So have a quick read.
We've gotten one response from Lucas for number 1.
Okay.
And he's identified 2 mistakes.
Okay, so 2 mistakes. Maybe just a few more seconds just for people to read. And maybe comment with the total number of mistakes that you find.
Lucas again has identified mistakes in number 2. And
cool. All right. So in red, you can see all of the mistakes that were made. So I believe in total we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mistakes. So there's a missing full stop, missing commas, missing apostrophes. There's the it's problem that was just identified. And then there's this very common one at the end where the student has capitalized a subject that doesn't need to be capitalized. So it's very common that you know, students will submit statements with grammar errors. And again, when a university admissions team is reading through several hundred statements, these little things obviously do have a big impact, because if you've got 2 identical students with 2 very good statements, but one has 3, 4 grammatical mistakes, obviously that student has put in less effort. They paid less attention. They care less about studying their degree. So it's sensible for an admissions tutor to discriminate based on grammatical accuracy and little things like that. Okay. And then finally, we've got mistake number 5. And I won't read the whole thing out, but if you just look at the paragraph, it's clearly quite heavy. And so this is the mistake of over-describing. This is really quite nuanced, because I've told you guys previously that it's important to bring in lots of specific details, lots of technical terminology if you can. But sometimes students will take that too far. And instead of talking about what they've learned from an experiment or from a book or from a lecture, they'll just re-describe the entire lecture. And so that's where it starts to turn into more of an academic essay. And that's not what a personal statement is. It's something in between an academic essay, passionate love letter, and an autobiography. And so when you get into really deep technical over explanation like this, over description, you're losing precious space that you could use to speak about what you're passionate about, why you're interested in your subject, what you learned. And instead you're sacrificing that to simply summarize an experiment or summarize a book. And again, that's not what your personal statement is. It shouldn't be full of book summaries. It should be full of what you learnt from specific books and why that interests you in studying at university. So that's the last common mistake, but sadly there are many more. And you know, there was a study from the Sutton Trust back in 2016 that found that 75% of teachers' personal statement judgments are wrong. And so a lot of students go to their teachers to get corrections on their personal statement. But the reality is your teachers don't necessarily know any better on what makes a good personal statement. Obviously, some do. But in this study, they found that if you have a look at this graph, you can see in blue, that's the admissions tutors. So that's how the admissions tutors scored the statement. That's how the universities scored the statement. And you can see when the admissions tutors scored the statement positively, the teachers scored it negatively. It's going down, the orange bar. And vice versa, when the universities gave it a negative score, the teachers gave it a positive score. And so one of the reasons that we started Socrasica is because we have so many students with top grades, 4A stars, getting rejected. They couldn't understand why, because they were like, oh, my teacher said my personal statement was great, but your teacher's opinion, unfortunately, isn't a very good gauge of whether the universities will actually like it. And so at Socrasica, you can get true expert feedback from our team of university lecturers, Oxbridge graduates. They've all gone through our rigorous training program, so they know exactly what universities are looking for in terms of specificity, reflections versus over description, and they finally understand that nuance that makes a really excellent personal statement. And so every review comes with unlimited revisions. So you don't just get one round of feedback, you can keep sending it back and back and back until you get that perfect personal statement. Spelling and grammar are corrected. You get feedback from a subject specialist. All review is turned over within 48 hours. We fact check your personal statement, and we make sure there's no AI usage or plagiarism, which universities are now looking out for. So once you've written your best attempt at a personal statement, following this structure and trying to avoid all of these common mistakes, we do recommend getting some kind of expert feedback. That can be from Socrasica, that can be from an actual university admissions tutor, it can be somebody who's currently working at a university as a lecturer or a professor, but somebody who knows what they're talking about. If you would like to use Socrasica to get your reviews, there is a 10% discount for ZNotes students. So use the discount code ZNotes 10, sorry, and you can get your statement reviewed at Socrasica.com. So I think that is everything. I'd love to hear all of your questions.
So we've had one from earlier, and it was from during the topical structure. So here you go.
Yeah, so if you're going to be applying to a degree in cybersecurity, that's what I'm understanding, and you're asking, will I have to discuss different modules within cybersecurity? Yes. So cybersecurity is obviously a more recent sort of degree. It hasn't existed for that many years, I would imagine. What I would recommend doing is going onto a cybersecurity degree page, and on that degree page, you can see the different modules that are offered within cybersecurity. Maybe pick out 2 or 3 that you find really interesting. So I'm sadly not a cybersecurity expert, but they might be using cryptographic methods to sort of store and preserve data. Others might be about, I don't know, dark web protection or something along those lines. So what I would do is look at the modules, choose some modules that you find interesting, and then write a paragraph about that topic slash module. So again, you can show a diversity of interest within your subject. Yeah.
Thanks for that,
I
Andrew.
also had a question. So I've seen some TikTok admission officers give advice on kind of keeping it low on the grammatical correctness, because sometimes they want to mitigate you sounding like a robot. So they're like, in order to sound more human, you like make some grammatical errors. Would you say that's good advice, or would you personally refrain from that on the YouTube?
Definitely not. So you can sound human without committing grammatical fallacies, for sure. I fully agree on the human part, right? So yes, I'm not recommending anybody write a statement sounding like a robot, a dispassionate robot. And one of the things I've tried to emphasize is getting across that passion and enthusiasm for your subject. No, it's definitely it's not a good idea to commit grammatical mistakes at all. Ever, I think, period, regardless of unless you're texting your friends or something, where very low stakes. Yeah, adhering to good grammar, I think, is very important, especially as at university you're writing a lot of academic scientific literature where grammar really, really matters. And there are some really interesting, funny memes about science where researchers have moved the comma into a different place and it's completely changed the meaning of a sentence. So grammar matters a lot. Being precise matters a lot. Being correct and fact checking what you've written matters a lot. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for dispelling some TikTok.
Yeah.
New source of advice as well.
Yeah.
It's been super valuable as always to have you and talk through those kind of key challenges and the perfect anatomy. I know that most of the listeners today will be working towards the 25 entry.
Yep.
But just as a quick note, to also say that UCAS is changing up their structure for the next academic cycle. So if you are applying to enter university by fall 2025 and you are working towards the deadline of 29th January, as Andrew said in the beginning, that is going to be in a personal statement style that has been described today. If you are looking towards applying the year after, so you're applying to get into university in 2026 and beyond, there will be a question-based personal statement response. Yes. The things that you've heard today are not necessarily going to be not helpful. In fact, everything that's been spoken about, the way you structure topic questions, the points around passion, the points around over description and issues that could come up are all going to be relevant, but you'll have a bit more of a structured application process. So be aware of that when that comes up, and more information about that will be released in the next few weeks and months. But I think that's all in terms of the questions. I don't think we have had any more coming in through the chat. This is your last call. If you have any final questions, please do send them in. I just wanted to kind of say thank you to Andrew and the Socrasica team. They've been amazing working with ZNotes to share their insights and advice on personal statement writing with us. They've shared a bunch of resources, which you'll get up on the follow-up email. They've also offered an amazing discount for us. So I know that when I was writing my personal statement, and it seems a few years ago now, I didn't have someone like Andrew's team to help review it. So I had to go to a bunch of mentors and advisors to kind of go through it. But it is really, really important, regardless of whether you go for a professional service, a good, an older cousin who's gone to uni before who may have some advice, or someone who's at uni itself. It's really, really important to do this in collaboration, because you get so stuck into a statement writing process that you don't see that second perspective. So super encourage you to consider getting your statement reviewed by family, by friends, by experts, and potentially by Socrasica as well. I'm really grateful for the discount you extended to our community.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for hosting me. Thank you for the questions and participation. And yeah, I wish you all the very best with your university applications.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care, guys.
We're going to have a survey that's going to come up right at the end of the session. So please do scan that and share your feedback on that. It really helps us improve and helps amazing experts like Andrew to keep coming to join us. So thank you for today, and look forward to seeing you in our next session in a couple of weeks. Have a good rest of the day, everyone. Bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye-bye.